Hi, good morning, everybody. Good day. I'm Nate Russell, and senior judge, and Tom Fain is on as well. Welcome, and will start off with introductions, and we'll then turn it over to the teams. I'll also go through an opening statement as well. So I'm Nate Russell, senior manager, contracts manager for Raytheon Technology Defense Aerospace Company. Tom?
I'm Tom Fain, retired securities lawyer.
Hey, is it Tom Chibala?
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you.
Okay, good. Thomas Chibala, I'm a director at Generations Healthcare in Santa Ana.
Okay. And Mike?
Hi there. Yeah, Mike Gomez here. I am an apparel industry manager, product design, development lifecycle, various outdoor brands.
Okay, thanks. So in this part of the competition, you're taking on a fictional business identity and assigning a fictional business identity to the judges. Please make sure everyone knows who you are and who they are before you begin. You will have 25 minutes to describe the legal, financial, and ethical dimensions of the problem and to recommend a solution that passes muster on all three counts. During this time, teams will be uninterrupted. When you are finished, the judges will ask you questions for 10 to 15 minutes. During the Q&A, both you and the judges stay in character. After the Q&A, the judges will give you feedback outside your playing roles. Okay, you're set to begin. We'll start the clock.
I was going to share my screen right now to get started. Hi, so we're Ceres Group. I'm Ali Mirza. We're talking to the Amazon Board of Directors, you guys, and we're here to present the Carbon Karma Initiative Idea 2. On our team, we have...
I'm Lauren Colasso.
I'm Alex Studnick.
And I'm Karina Landgraf.
So with that, we'll begin into the initiative idea. We'll go into exactly what the Amazon issue right now that Amazon is facing is, and we'll integrate our solution throughout the entire analysis portion of this. So the crux of the issue is that Amazon has been growing constantly for a long time now. Despite this, its public image has been faltering. We see this presenting two key dimensional issues. Mostly there's the ethical issue this poses, and there's a financial issue. They're almost two flip sides of the coin, whereas in the result of profits, Amazon has engaged activities such as this one-day shipping option, which has been seen very favorably by consumers. But on the other side of that, the one-day shipping option presents a real hurdle for its infrastructure in terms of delivery vans, in terms of shipping routes, and it poses a future issue while answering a present concern that consumers have for fast shipping. Amazon realizes this, and seeing this, Amazon has in fact made a climate pledge recently. In fact, as of around February 2020, Amazon has done some massive improvements within its supply chain to be able to work towards this climate pledge goal it has. The climate pledge itself is really modeled around the UN Paris COP50 agreement, except it's ambitious more so in the sense that it aims to reach those guidelines 10 years early. So Amazon is really challenging itself. And it really is I'm sure as the board of directors understands, there's an initiative here to really well position Amazon for a future business that's more sustainable. Despite all this, all of these efforts have gone unnoticed so far, and there hasn't really been a public eye on these efforts. And as a result of that, in addition to some other ethical issues Amazon is facing, there's a severe growing distrust within Amazon's consumer base within how the company has been operating lately. And this is not to mention even the ethical implications regarding work laws Amazon has, but even more so just its own operational supply chain processes with shipping routes, for example. As a result of all these ethical concerns, we have the financial issues that come about, right? We have now a market of many consumers who want more sustainably produced products, but aren't able to get that. Moreover, we have many consumers who are shopping on Amazon currently, but survey results have been showing that this may not necessarily be what they expect or want to be doing well into the future if Amazon continues to operate how it has been operating. So the bottom line here is that there's a massive untapped market base that Amazon really can get into if it makes the right choices. The solution, therefore, we'll present, and we'll get into the dimensional analysis of this soon, but a synopsis of it is the Carbon Karma program. The name Carbon Karma is really self-explanatory. It looks towards the carbon that's being emitted from all of these supply processes. And the karma part of the name is really supposed to add a sense of giving back. It's a virtuous cycle in which not only is the economy stimulated through Amazon's actions here, but the consumer base that it will be then offering things back to, they themselves will be benefiting from engaging with this program. The program itself is fairly simple. It's a normal checkout page that Amazon has on all its products. It'll have a 3% pledge option, a checkbox when you're checking out, when you're buying whatever you're buying. It's purely opt-in and it's a completely optional system. When you do check that checkbox, you will really be pledging to donate 3% of your total cost towards this Carbon Karma initiative that Amazon has. Once Amazon takes those contributions at the end of the year, the sum total of those, it'll be put towards the United Nations Environmental Program in a partnership with the United Nations, and it'll be put towards research and development to really give back to the industry at whole through research and whatnot, through university research centers, in this case, electric vehicle research centers from UC Davis. The last part of this plan would be the consumer give back part. This really is a karma section of the idea, where now we have the consumers who have contributed to this program showing their initiative. We've provided them an option to really monetize their passive climate activism, and we've taken that and been able to give back to them in a way by having special reduced pricing on certain Amazon line of products. For example, we have the Amazon Basics line of product that currently exists right now. Here we have some concept renderings where on the left side, you will see what the product might look like originally as a normal consumer shopping around on the Amazon Web Services. The middle picture is what it might look like when you're checking out. Obviously, this was not the $22 charges. This is actually a much more expensive projector that I had in my cart. But you get the sense that the Carbon Karma contribution is delineated very clearly for the consumer to see. And then once they have invoked themselves within this program by contributing sufficient amount towards the Carbon Karma program, then you'll see on the right side, the same product or other products that are Amazon Basics line of products would have special pricing. And you can see that there with the $17.99 with Carbon Karma. This really represents the entire hierarchy of the program, where you have the initial state, consumer buying into this program, and the benefits the consumer gets. We move on now with the financial section. And Alec will take a deep dive into exactly how this will play out through a more fundamental financial analysis.
Yeah, thanks, Ali. So first, to touch on some of the statistics he brought up from the key identifications. Firstly, when surveyed, around 70% of people said that they were willing to pay an additional 5% for a more sustainably produced product. And this is something that has been recreated by various international studies. So it's very clear that there is a market here of people willing to add to their payments if the products are more sustainable, more sustainably sourced. With that, as part of their climate pledge, which was a corporate action inspired by the Paris agreements, Amazon has purchased 100,000 electric vehicles to support their efforts in this climate pledge in the climate battle. And yet, despite their efforts, despite making vast steps towards improving the environment and sustainability, around 67% of survey respondents said that they'd heard little to nothing at all about what Amazon has been doing behind the scenes to improve sustainability all over the world. And now he's going to continue.
Thank you, Ali. Here we have more of a financial breakdown showing really the entire structure of the program as it goes from the start to the end. So working numbers for Amazon for yearly income in the past fiscal year 2019 was around a $141 billion revenue. Note, this is purely from the Amazon Web Store. This excludes Whole Foods, this excludes Amazon Web Services, and many other large, significant portions of Amazon's other ventures and sources of income, really. Again, so this is purely from online stores, $141 billion. A Carbon Karma contribution of around 3%, and then assuming that only 1% of the surveyed 70% expected amount actually end up buying into this program. So this is a very low end estimate. We would then be left with around $42 million directly raised from the Carbon Karma program. Again, assuming a low end estimate of only 1% buy-in into this program, as opposed to the projected potential upper end estimate of 70%. even this 1% estimate yields $42 million. And if that was to be put towards the two ventures that we have delineated previously, the United Nations Environmental Program and the UC Davis Electric Vehicle Research Center, this would be split up and sent towards both of those programs. If it was not split 50-50, if, for example, it was split as fully towards the United Nations Environmental Program or the UC Davis, then to contextualize exactly how big of an amount this might be for those programs, the UNEP current operating budget is around $950 million, the United Nations Environmental Program. This donation over the course of around 5 years would soon come to represent a 40% increase in their operational budget through just Amazon, using a lower end estimate of 1% contribution through Carma. So this is a really lowball figure with an unprecedented public-private sector partnership between the United Nations Environmental Program, the United Nations as a whole, and Amazon, one corporation, albeit understandably a market-leading, really pivotal keystone corporation in the online web services industry. Similarly, if the entire contribution amount was sent towards UC Davis, that would actually be a similarly around 50% increase over the course of many years, increasing UC Davis's entire university endowment, let alone just this one research electric vehicle research center they have. So in both cases, this would be an overwhelmingly massive investment into the future of sustainably sourced supply chains. With the result of this, financially speaking, as investors, as board directors, Amazon would be really meeting its fiduciary responsibilities by doing this. What Amazon would be doing is it would be improving its bottom line through a more short-term approach, but also in conscience of a long-term outlook towards the future. It really poses a solution of 4 or 5 ends here as part of this cooperation, especially the United Nations Environmental Program, where you have the potential, you have a system where you're informing a means of operational frameworks through the Carma program. You're raising awareness about the issue at hand, about you're taking the passive climate activism and really bringing it up a notch to putting in the forefront. This really tackles the issue that Amazon is facing right now about a lot of its climate activism going unnoticed and therefore consumers not trusting Amazon, right? So just by that, we'll have driven much more traffic to the Amazon Web Services because the consumers that were previously perhaps misinformed would now be more aware of the efforts that Amazon has been taking. That's the information category. Developing is, I would assume, self-explanatory here, where by investing so heavily into university research centers that are pumping out new research every day on electric vehicle cost minimization, deployment of electric vehicles across the grid systems around the nation, really be jumping into that as well. The government aspect is really interesting because recently, the United Nations Environmental Program has really heavily been pushing for corporate and public sector cooperation. But it's a lot harder to do this through independent government organizations in an increasingly globalized world. And that's where the United Nations is hoping to jump in. And this would really set an example for the rest of the industry. In terms of investment and expansion, I think it's clear as well, where Amazon is really reducing its long-term costs in terms of shipping routes, in terms of electric vehicle delivery fleets, and it's projecting a long-term net profit from these investments, even if at the moment it would be investing deeply within this program. Again, this is nothing Amazon hasn't done in the past. Amazon has taken really forward-thinking approaches when it shipped over, for example, from purely a books-based service to now the one and only one-stop shop for all online purchases, really. So this is something Amazon has had a history of doing. It's really in the nature and the vein of the company. Look no further than the entire idea behind the recent climate pledge itself. This would merely be a public outlook and really putting more of a light on an initial program that already exists almost. Karina will now take it to a more legal perspective and really delineate the entire legal argument.
Thank you, Ali. So as we know, Amazon.com Incorporated is a C corporation. That means it's the standard or default corporate entity under IRS guidelines. Now, being a C corp allows you guys certain taxable entities and benefits that other corporations might not have. For instance, you get to file corporate tax returns, pay taxes at a corporate level. But the most beneficial aspect to being a C corporation as it pertains to this presentation today is the fact that unlike C corps or their LLC counterparts, a C corp is enabled to deduct contributions to eligible charities as a business expense. This is an incredible advantage in the business world. This also factors directly into Carma. Carbon Karma, as we previously explained, will be split between the United Nations Environmental Program and UC Davis's Electric Vehicle Program. Next slide, please. Thank you. So Amazon, as a world-leading business, has its success felt all across the world. Therefore, we at Carbon Karma Ceres Group thought that it's only fair that we work alongside a similarly altruistic organization whose reach is felt in parallel that of Amazon itself. Obviously, we went with the UN. The UN is an incredibly large organization whose grasp can be felt in its altruistic nature in all corners of the globe. So, despite operating at a comparable caliber, there are some caveats that come with working in the United Nations. Namely, the United Nations is an intergovernmental organization. That means that it's not based within the US itself, and it actually operates at an intergovernmental level. This means that it is not a 501c3. As such, we're not able to get tax-deductible benefits if we contribute to it directly. However, there's a way to work around this and still benefit the globe in the same way. We found the UN Foundation. The UN Foundation is a 501c3, IRS accredited, that's based out of DC. It also works directly with the UN because it is a UN entity based in the US for the sole purpose of allowing US taxpayers and corporations to donate to it while receiving tax-deductible benefits. Now, the United Nations is comprised of 3 budgets: its standard operating budget, voluntary contributions, and the peacekeeping budget. All of the contributions made by our consumers will go directly to the United Nations through the United Nations Foundation, and through that, they'll be subsequently sent to the voluntary contributions budget. This will be an incredible help for the United Nations. Last year alone, many of their programs, such as the United Nations Environmental Program, rely almost entirely on voluntary contributions as a result of the standard operating budget being spread too thin. There were very hot discussions last year about the UN having fiscal difficulties because they were not receiving enough voluntary contributions. Amazon can be that supplier of the funds necessary to keep the UN running. Now, in order to process a legal tax deduction that was detailed across innumerable fiscal legislations, such as ones published by the IRS, most notably publications 542 and 526, there are certain processes that must be followed. For instance, we must take into account the 10% rule. Now, for example, a company can have as much contributions or contribute as many things as they want, fiscally or otherwise in the form of property, to these different charitable organizations that are IRS accredited. However, when it comes time to filling out that 1120 form, specifically line 19, their fiscal contributions to charitable organizations, they're only able to record up to 10% of their pre-tax income for that same fiscal year. That means that even if they were to supersede that value with their contributions, only 10% of that value would be tax deductible for them. Now let's contextualize this with respect to your organization, Amazon. Last year's pre-tax income was $13.976 billion. Now, this means that your federal income tax rate, because of the 2017 comprehensive tax reform that was passed, was a flat corporate tax rate of 21%. That means that you were paying $3 billion, or at least were charged with paying $3 billion worth of federal taxes. Now, in order to explain this slightly more in depth, please keep in mind that when a consumer donates to the Carbon Karma program, those contributions will automatically be earmarked and sent directly to the UN. While it technically is counted as an income for Amazon because we are collecting that money directly towards our profits at the time of it being donated by the consumer, it does not go towards any operating costs of Amazon, as it is immediately earmarked and then sent to the UN. That means that we do not touch the money. We are merely a messenger, or a third party rather, in giving it from the consumer to the UN. Now, that being said, we do not reap any of the tax-deductible benefits of the consumer's contributions. What we do at the end of the year is, after assessing how much money the consumers gave directly to the UN, we calculate how much of that could possibly factor into our 10% tax-deductible income. For example, if we're using the prior numbers that I used, namely the $13.976 billion from your 2019 pre-taxable income, up to 10% of that, namely $1.397 billion, could be matched by Amazon if the consumers match more than 10% of our pre-taxable income. Say they donated up to $1.4 billion. Amazon would then match up to 10% of that, namely 1.39, and reap the tax-deductible benefits. Next slide. So the other 50% of the Carbon Karma money will go towards UC Davis's Plug-in Hybrid and Electric Vehicle Research Center. Now, our research and development credit is something that has been around for a very long time within the US, I apologize. It's more colloquially referred to as an R&D credit. Now, under the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017, this legislation greatly expanded the US's research and development credit program, and this is something that Amazon can use to an advantage. Half of that money, the 50% that does go towards UC Davis's research program, will count as a research and development credit for Amazon. That means that that money directly translates into what are called credits, and those credits at a 1-for-1 ratio will then translate into deductions against both federal and state liabilities, namely taxes. And I'm sure you're aware that in the last year alone, Amazon was tasked with paying $1.4 billion worth of just state liabilities, not even federal, just state. Next slide. Now, there's an inherent benefit to both of these programs, and they are entirely legal as well. So with the instance of the United Nations contributions, it's impossible for Amazon to go wrong. They can neither be overzealous nor underzealous. In the instance of their consumers being incredibly overzealous and excited about the Carbon Karma program, say for example, they were to donate more than 10% of what our pre-taxable income is. That's entirely fine. Amazon would then subsequently match that 10% value, and that would be entirely tax deductible for that fiscal year. However, the IRS has implemented a program known as a 5-year spread. This 5-year spread means that the excess money that could not be covered within that 10% would then be allocated to the next fiscal year, meaning that we already have that balance, that value that we can inherently match even at the beginning of the year if we so choose, and can immediately have a tax deductible sum to reap from that. Meaning that that the contributions of our consumers are valuable and can be accredited across the next 5 years from the time of their initial contribution. Even in the instance of our consumers being underzealous, meaning that they do not contribute up to that 10% threshold, which is entirely plausible seeing as Amazon reaps an entirely high, incredibly impressive profit on an annual basis. Even if this was the case, it still means that everything that they do contribute would be tax deductible for Amazon because it's up to 10%. It does not have to be 10%. Even if it was less, we would still reap the tax deductible benefits of that. Now, in the instance of the research credits going towards UC Davis, there's a program called the Federal Tax Credit Carry Forward. This allows corporations and taxpayers alike to save unused credits, and they're allowed to apply them for the future tax year. Through these programs, we have a zero net loss endeavor, and we can see that Amazon has nothing to lose through this whatsoever. Please go to the next slide. Yeah, just there. Wait, the one after before that. Yeah, I'm still on that one, sorry. So now there's of course this perception among the public that are not as familiar with Amazon's current financial state that Amazon does not pay taxes. However, we both know that this is not true. Amazon is taxed across countless platforms and levels because of their incredible success. However, Amazon, as they're not a 501c3 organization, does not owe transparency to anyone aside from their shareholders, hence the widespread misconception of other current tax states across the media. Amazon, as a C Corp, gets taxed twice on the federal level, as well as once on the state level. The media tends to focus on the first federal level of taxes. In this way, Amazon has been able to somewhat circumvent, you could say, paying their taxes through other beneficial and altruistic ways and endeavors that they have pursued, allowing them for certain tax breaks. However, there's a second level of taxes that Amazon is paying right now, costing them billions of dollars. And I'm sure you're familiar with this. Amazon is also taxed on the second federal level, known as a dividend level, when they give the money earned to the shareholders back to them. There's a second level of federal tax that kicks in, and it's costing our company billions worth of dollars. Through the UN contributions and the 10% rule, we would be able to deduct and detract from that currently owned taxes. Additionally, we owe billions of dollars worth of state liabilities on the state level. The research credit program would allow us to chip away at the required taxes on the state level, saving Amazon a further billion sum of dollars. Next slide, please.
Presentation.
All right, thank you.
Now we're going to go on to Lauren with the ethical component of this.
Thank you, Karina, for explaining the legal parameters. I'll be moving on to the ethics of the product. Next slide, please. Let's talk about why sustainability is an ethical issue. Increasingly, fires are burning across our rainforests. Heat is causing diseases to spread rampantly, and the state of our world is rapidly deteriorating. Isn't it our responsibility to fix a world that we have helped bring into ruin? This, I say, is a problem of ethics. If we have the capacity to fix a crisis as large as this one, that is our responsibility as fellow humans. If we work together, it's possible to reduce our carbon footprint. Our carbon footprint being defined by the EPA as the total amount of greenhouse gases produced directly and indirectly from our human activities. With a small 3% carbon footprint donation on our goods, we can donate money to the UN to meet their sustainability goals and UC Davis electric vehicles to develop less wasteful vehicles. In conjunction, we believe that these will have the ability to help neutralize the consumer's carbon footprint and overall make the environment a more livable place for the betterment of society. Next slide, please. Let's talk about the veil of ignorance. Take, for instance, that half of the world were in the original position, a world in which Amazon business continued as usual, and the other half of the world were offered an opportunity to give a little extra to the earth. Most people would feel adequately about being in either side, which means that in the new position, the one in which Amazon offers that 3% is morally justifiable. In a world in which this exists, you are no worse off with this new product. In fact, some people may even prefer to be in the half that allows them to benefit the earth through donations. Now, let's talk about the utility of the product. The goal is ideally to create a solution that would appeal to the most amount of people and make the majority happy. Happiness being defined as sustainably responsible and having participants feel satisfied that they have committed to completing a certain action. Interestingly, according to Pew Research, up to 74% of American adults agree with the statement that the country should do whatever it is within their power to protect their environment. It is clearly an issue that the majority of Americans agree is important to solve, and likely other countries also have a similar view to this one. By instituting a policy such as carbon karma, we would ultimately be doing net good for the world. Next slide, please. So to address some possible issues and propose solutions, an ethical concern has been that this will just be an effort of the average citizen. We can guarantee that this is not the case. Amazon will be pitching in as well. It is their responsibility to partially match offers that the consumers donate and offer discounts on green products to the people who are donating. It is a collaborative effort between corporations and consumers, and we hope that this movement will inspire other corporations to start taking up the green mantle. Another issue that has been brought up is that some people see this idea as playing on a person's guilty conscience, as in pressuring them into wanting to donate money through guilt and/or manipulation. We assure you that we only want fully consented donations. There's more than enough people who are willing to donate money to help stop climate change. Did you know?
I have to stop you. You're out of time.
Mhm.
Can you? We just hit the time. I appreciate it, and I actually gave you a couple of minutes over.
Thank you.
So if you could pull out of the presentation, please. Appreciate it. So let me go around, and I appreciate everybody. Tom, I'll let you start it off if you have kick off the questions.
I have.
Sure. Go ahead.
The other Tom or this?
Sorry.
Which
Sorry,
Tom?
Tom, fine. Thanks. Yes,
Me.
you.
Right. Okay. I have multiple questions, but I won't consume the time allotted for all the other people. I am unclear at the consumer level what the tax effect of this thing that you have been calling the 3% contribution is. Can you clarify that for us?
The tax deductible aspect?
Is that it? Is it tax deductible?
So not for the consumers. In order for something to be tax deductible with
Okay.
the IRS, there has to be a confirm of receipt by the charitable organization, and Amazon will not be providing that receipt to the consumer.
Okay, so just to follow that up, it is therefore income to Amazon.
It is, yes, it is technically categorized as income. However, it does not go towards operating costs because it is automatically earmarked to go towards either the UN or the UC Davis endeavors.
Okay, I'll yield to somebody else, Nate.
Tom Gerbala?
Quick question. Hey, Lauren, I know you got cut off a little bit there at the end. Is there any highlight that you missed on your last seconds of your presentation that you want to throw out there?
Thank you. I just wanted to, there was one more issue I wanted to address, that if people believe that there's a conflict of interest, most of the money is going to charity, and this is like a net good for people. That's all I wanted to emphasize at the end of my presentation, but thank you for letting me finish.
No, that's okay. And then one other question is, why do you think nobody's heard about Amazon's adventures or, into these investments and into the platform? How come nobody's heard about it?
I think I'll take that one. So one of the biggest issues that we found is that clearly, and we were trying to demonstrate that with our statistics, is that many companies, especially a lot of the larger ones, have recognized a kind of economic shift towards where the market is headed right now, except it's all disjointed in what their efforts are and what the consumers are recognizing. And then of course the question naturally is what you're asking is, why is that the case? Why is that not happening? And that's really why we think Carma is really the solution to that, because it takes that passive activism that I mentioned earlier and it brings it to the forefront of the consumer. So consumers, when they're interacting with Amazon right now, all they see is a product that they're shopping, the checkout that they're doing, and they get their product the next day, right? At most, the more vigilant consumers might be reading news articles about how Amazon's latest one-day shipping option now is making people buy a lot more single-use products at a one-day shipping rate, which means you have a lot more concurrent delivery vehicles zipping around the entire country, right? They're really only hearing what's being reported, and what's being reported are these consequences without any light being put on what Amazon itself is doing. So that's why Carma really takes that and puts it at the forefront on the checkout page, showing you that, hey, this is an actual Amazon initiative that we're doing. And then consumers who want to look into it can then eventually stumble upon the Amazon Climate Pledge. You can see all the 100,000, in fact, 100,000 electric vehicles Amazon bought recently is the largest investment in electric vehicles in history so far. And nobody knows this, right? So the hope is that as we push this program to the forefront of the consumer's interactions with Amazon, then it'll be able to raise more awareness about it.
Yeah, because Amazon's viewed as the big bad company that's just gobbling everything up. You would think that they'd take your approach and really push that this emphasis. And I thought you guys did a great job considering, the format that we're in today's world. This is perfect. I really appreciate your efforts. That's all I got.
Mike?
Yeah, hey guys. Yeah, I would echo that. You guys had a nice cadence and confident delivery to everything. Well done there. I do have a couple questions. I'll just do one and let other people jump in first and maybe follow up with other ones. But I was wondering about your rationale, reasoning process to landing on the two destinations of the charities, the United Nations thing and the UC Davis thing. A little bit of context, just wondering if you've considered, any polarizing PR issues, demographic feelings about those destinations, and are there other destinations that are maybe backups if those if there's concerns about those ones?
Karina, do you want to take this one or should I?
I think Alec has a great answer for it.
Alec, go ahead.
Yeah, so we did do a lot of talking about where these destinations, what the ideal destinations were. We settled on the UN and UC Davis because we feel that they present the most opportunity to achieve our goals. So the UN in expanding us to a global community, really connecting the whole world in this sustainability effort. And then UC Davis because they are directly engaged in the electric car program, which, if you look around today, you can see the impact of just getting the cars off the roads because of the current situation that we're in, how rapidly the environment improves. So that was why we originally settled there. Of course, there's any infinite number of profitable charitable organizations that the money could go to. We looked at some like the Environmental Defense Fund in America and a couple others. Again, we settled on these two because they seem to fit with our agenda, but Of course, with anything, there's always going to be some aspect of disagreement, polarization. So it's flexible, I think.
On that note, specifically within polarization, I think we're all aware that the UN especially is something that has a very either pro or against perspective, especially in the current times, political times. Though we kind of see this as Amazon being a multinational corporation around the world, we do find that most of the polarization regarding the UN statistically seems to be localized within the US. And even within the US, it seems to be a much more vocal minority within the US by and large. Other than that, other than just the vocal minority aspect of it and the UN's implications of it, really the UN at the very least would be a really good starting point for Amazon, because it's almost an instant certification as a globally accredited program partnership. Really, there's no doubt behind the legitimacy and the genuinity and the sincerity behind this collaboration.
And also, just to jump onto that a little bit. So as you mentioned previously, because of the immense success that you guys have incurred with Amazon, there really are not that many other comparable altruistic organizations out there that operate at an even similar caliber. You know, Amazon is very much the hegemon of online business and online revenue right now. And so the UN is essentially the equivalent with benevolent organizations. And so in working with the UN and an organization that encompasses all 17 sustainable development goals, you can't find that anywhere else. It really kind of pays homage to Amazon's messaging, which is moving forward together better, you know? So the together aspect comes with UN, and it's providing like the kind of community and I guess you could say the kind of nice aspect that the UN contributes through its joint multinational efforts to combat like poverty and other things like that across the globe. And the better aspect comes from our contribution to UC Davis's research, because the research made at UC Davis as it directly pertains to the electric cars, not only directly pertains to Amazon and our fleet of currently gas-powered vehicles, with the exception of your currently purchased fleet of electric vehicles, but it also contributes directly to the state of affairs as a whole, because almost every American now owns a car, and most of them are powered by gas.
And we believe by working with some of the largest hegemons that there are, this is our greatest opportunity to make an unparalleled difference in the positive impact we can have on the environment and the change we can make.
Okay. Thanks for that answer. I would maybe in follow-up love to see some type of hard numbers polling about favorable or not, but I'll leave it at that.
Okay, I have a question kind of on the, you know, the polls that you show, 70, I guess it was 70% of folks really want to be able to contribute and help out in a way. Have you guys done any research in terms of any other pilot programs similar to this and what the participation rate was for similar type of programs, whether here at Amazon or at any other companies?
So if I might answer this question. So the way that we viewed this was through the lens of, this is essentially just taking a business model that has been widely successful for countless years and just moving it online, right? So you've all been to the grocery store before, and you know when you go and you check out and they ask, oh, would you like to round up for XYZ charity? I'm sure we've all been faced with that question before, right? And so in effect, that company's asking us to practice kind of passive activism and a passive like charitable gesture. And so this would be the same thing online. It would be passive environmentalism, which caters directly to consumers' needs and consumers' tendencies. When asked, and there are polls that accredit this and back this up, when asked at the grocery store, a consumer on a daily basis rather, would you like to round up for XYZ charity? Over 80% of them will opt to say yes. And of those people, the vast majority of them will not inquire upon whether or not it's tax deductible and will never follow up upon it again. So we figured that this is a very sustainable business model, and it's also very easy to subsequently move it online to a huge amalgamated resource center such as Amazon.
On that note as well, for comparable programs, so it's slightly unrelated, but the idea is there. Maybe some of you guys have heard about Apple's Product Red line of thing. It's not directly Apple, but Apple is a pretty mainstream forward-facing for this program, kind of like how we propose here Amazon to be for Carma. But Product Red is a similar program wherein you buy a normal Apple product just in the red color, and a large portion of the funds, in fact, I believe it might be all the funds from that, are then sent towards, initially it was HIV awareness, but currently I think they've shifted over to COVID-19, obviously, issues right now. And that program itself has raised around, I think, $30 million in the last year also, which is similar to our, again, our lowball 1% estimate for the Carbon Karma program. So programs similar to this exist, but then as Karina said, Amazon really is well poised to make this unprecedented transition of something that's already been existing in the physical world and become a market leader in the online industry, really expand further its ability to not only reduce its own costs, but really start a whole new economic ecosystem of sustainably sourced products, really.
Okay, I appreciate it. Any final questions? I'll just the panel, if you guys have anything. One last.
I'm good.
Okay. Tom, fine. You okay?
I'm good.
Okay. So let's break character and let's give constructive feedback on the presentation. Mike, you any thoughts?
Sure, I can jump in. Just what I started saying earlier, you know, I thought you guys all spoke clearly and at a good pace, not rushed, and confident. That was great. I know we're all learning how to use this Zoom thing, you know, parallel and I would, you know, in a real life setting or in-person setting, I should say, you know, having moments of direct eye contact with your audience and really engaging, something that I always try to remember, not staring at slides. Those are kind of like a 101 things with PowerPoint presentations. So, you know, maybe those don't apply today, but there was nothing that really stood out in this setting. So thank you.
Tom J.
I got to get used to Mike's head getting smaller and bigger as he's talking. That's pretty no, I thought it was great, considering what we're going through right now. I do probably 4 or 5 calls a day like this right now, and I thought you guys did a great job. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yep. Tom, fine. You have anything?
I do. When I give money to people, a cause of my concern is, what are they going to do with it? Since I can't control it once they get it, I have to have some assurances where it's going. You guys appear not to have considered that issue.
I guess we could have further emphasized it. I see that almost as our responsibility. We did consider it. I guess we could have done better about communicating it. The idea was that consumers would be getting something back from it by knowing that Amazon is engaged with the United Nations Environmental Program and electric vehicles in order to reduce its own costs. So it's kind of a two-pronged approach here. From a consumer's perspective, we hope that they see not only an investment within sustainable development goals, specifically the ones we delineated, but then also they look at it, they feel almost less guilty. And that's what Lauren was about to touch on with her ethical issues, where we kind of remove the guilt aspect of using 1-day shipping options, 2-day shipping options. Because now you know that when you do those quick shipping options, they're coming through green sources, they're coming to electric vehicles, they're coming through products that aren't really making you feel worse off about using these new Amazon fast shipping options. I guess we could have done a better job at emphasizing what the consumer, the goodwill the consumer feels out of that, but we tried incorporating that into the ethical slides towards the end.
Thank you.
I have 2 parting comments. I love the presentation. What the first, my question on comparable programs. I would have liked to have seen a visual. So I understood that 70% of folks want to help in some way. It would have been a really nice closing function for me to see a visual that says, hey, comparable programs, 80% of the people at supermarkets, when you ask them to round up to help a charity, 80% say yes. That would have been a good visual on a chart to show, you know, I think you guys took a low side example. It would have helped sell the upside of the potential of that program. On the tax discussion, I kind of got lost in that. For me, visuals would have been better to sell, or not sell, but tell the story of the tax benefit. More visuals would have been, in my opinion, would have been a better graphic to show the kind of the bang for the buck there of what they could do with the dollars and how it could benefit the program. But other than that, I overall, it was a fantastic presentation. and I really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Mike?
Yeah, I have a similar comment. I'm not sure if I'm saying the same thing as you, but it was clear how much money would land with the charitable organizations. And I know you guys spoke to the tax benefits and such for Amazon. I was trying to follow along, and I was trying to understand what that meant to the Amazon bottom line, and seeing clear numbers of some of the stuff you were speaking to would have been helpful. But understanding, on the items where it was not the consumer making the donation, but the discount to the consumer. So if that was 3%, also I wasn't sure. What's our average selling commission, and so how much is our income per transaction on average being reduced, and what does that add up to, and then how is that kind of mitigated by tax savings? I know you guys are speaking to it, but seeing a clear numbers on the screen to take away would have been helpful.
Yeah. All right. I think that concludes it. I really appreciate your time. Thanks, everyone.